It's taking something so simple like throwing something and catching it. It's taking that and taking it to this level of like, I had no idea that was even possible.
Through the process of basically taking what they have and turning it into an artistic expression of sorts, they're able to sort of build these whole pieces that then allows them to sort of connect with the audience further. It's still my favorite part of the show, and it's one of the pieces, we use it in the casting process because it tells us so much about a person's ability to connect sort of the work that they're doing with their need to connect with the audience.
It's largely stylistic, it's not necessarily satirical, but there is I would call it kind of a Warholian look at some of the products in our world. You know, often in our show, the things that are used are pretty iconic, and they've actually been around a while. You know, Jell-O, Captain Crunch, Campfire Marshmallows, and GUMBALLS. The string of those kind of iconic things throughout the show, or images, also kind of puts it in a context, and it draws from some of the things that are familiar to us, and I think the end result is to really have people understand that the Blue Man has come here to examine our world.
You need the people to be comfortable doing it. You know, there is going to be a natural way that people do it. It is athletic. You are moving at a distance away from someone else as if you've never done this thing before. And you're going to, you know, feel the space between you two, and you need to nail throwing something. You know, we talk about it, you know, you've got to hit an area like this, you know, 10 times out of 10. The actual act of throwing, it's already different than just throwing. You're in a relationship with this other person. I want to have this thing and let you see it or feel it. We're going to test something out, me and you. I'm going to back up into my position. I'm going to make sure you're good, and then I'm going to give you this thing.
So when I remember we were learning it in training, it was a daunting task. I mean, we had to work on it a lot. And that was a huge part of training, no matter what we were working on, if we were learning the PVC numbers, if we were learning crunch. In the background, we were always throwing and catching. It was, you know, 3 people would be up playing PVCs and practicing on PVCs, and the other guys would be throwing and catching, because it's one of those things you just cannot stop practicing. It gets better and better the more you practice. When I'm playing right, making the spin canvas is probably my favorite part. It's another one of those parts where if you nail it, it's amazing. It's such an amazing piece of art, and you get to create it right there live in front of the audience, and it's really, really fun, and it's really, really fulfilling. It's definitely my favorite part of that number. There are definitely techniques to getting it right. It's really trying to feed the paint out at the same speed as the air coming out. And so I like to rest it on my tongue and then slowly push my tongue up so that it meets the air coming out. Super complicated technique for something that looks very simple on stage.
So a lot of the stuff here day to day is doing a lot of the same thing, cleaning, maintaining, little fixes here and there. But when we get to make the paintballs and the marshmallows, we get to have a little bit of fun. We're actually creating something from nothing. These we get to make out of a balloon, and we fill them with the paint, and then we make each individual little ball, and it ends up looking like a cluster of grapes. And then we cut them all off, and they make each individual color. Making the marshmallows is a lot of fun too. The biggest thing that we do with that is cornstarch, to keep from everything sticking together, so the guys don't have a bunch stuck together, so they're not throwing one big marshmallow at the guy's face. It would be funny, but it wouldn't work very well.
So the process of stuffing the marshmallows is complicated and delicate. I remember learning it and just thinking there's no way. But there are techniques. Of course, there's a lot of mouth to fit it into, and so you just kind of, off the bat, you're just kind of trying to hide them away in different places. So in the cheeks down below, you push them up, you can just try and put them wherever they can go. But for the most part, like storage areas, you really just chipmunk. Like, you've got to try and fit as much in your cheeks as you can, because you're fitting a lot of them. It gets overwhelming at times, and I couldn't say that I have not gagged on occasion, if not most nights, doing that number.
My first week of doing shows, I had trained in dissenter, so I was the guy catching the marshmallows in my mouth. And I remember there was one performance where I had just come over a stomach bug or something. I was not feeling well. And it's already a little unnatural to shove about 30 marshmallows into your mouth. I just remember going through gumballs and marshmallows, wanting this gone, wanting other stuff gone from my stomach as well. And on top of it all, there were 3 directors in the audience watching me because this was one of my first performances. And I wanted to kind of leave the stage and or throw up and or both. The band is providing that underscore, that current, that awareness, that thought process, that spinal fluid of the Blue Man navigating these murky waters of figuring things out one step at a time.
You know, ultimately, it's, I think, the most fun part to play in the show because you can really invoke your own styles and emotions into it. There's things that we can't really predict. There's things, you know, for instance, when a paintball gets dropped or a marshmallow goes overhead or something happens. So you just have to roll with the punches, and it really makes it exciting every show.
Some form of catching something was always there since the very beginning. Often the creative process, it begins with one thing, like a seed, like sometimes it's a skill. I think Chris was the one who first did it with this cherry, but he and I together did it at these catering gigs. We would go in the kitchen, and whenever there was something that was throwable, the chefs would throw food at us, you know, and we would catch it in our mouths. It almost became a poor starving actor's way of being fed. So those were fun days, but actually it helped us hone the skill. I think it's just one of those things as you're workshopping. You're like, oh, I caught one, let's see how many can I catch? And we also did that with the gumballs for a while. But we realized that, quickly realized that if you put all those colors together, it's just a brown muck, you know, if you combine those colors. So the marshmallow guy, I think we just wanted to see, well, you know, you caught 16, can it be more? You know, and then it was like, well, what would we do if we're in a show? What would we do with this? And I think one day Chris just like, you know, did this and it came out this monolithic thing, and just felt like, well, that's kind of funny. It's sort of a sculpture. It's a mouth sculpture. You know, there's a silliness and satire in that alone. You know, but so much of our discovery happens on its feet. A normal clown or a normal human, when they're subject to being thrown at, and they would say, "Wait a minute, man, stop that!" You know, they'd walk away or something, or they'd let them just fly. Like, I don't need this, you know. But instead, the hero in that character comes out and says, "No, I'm going to stay here and turn this into something different." But the clown is the one that seems so innocent and doesn't know what's happening. You know, it's in great opposition to the guy who, on the other side of the stage, who catches the gumballs. You know, he's very heroic. He seems to like he knows what he's doing. So it's really the best display of those modalities. And the guy in the middle is sort of a trickster, an MC, so to speak, and making these choices that the other two sometimes know and sometimes don't know. That's where a lot of the humor of the piece comes from. But it also reveals this quirky kind of ritual approach to everything, this kind of love of process. I think many pieces in our show, at the core, that's really what the theme of it is, this kind of tribe who are so very close that they can create these strange processes, and we as normal humans, we have no idea where they're going, you know, and I think that's one of the things, other than the skill of catching something in your mouth, I think that's one of the things that appeals to people most.
Get out of my shot, it's all about me.
I'm filming him for a sec.
Hey, thanks for watching. Subscribe to Blue Man Group and you'll be in the know about all the new videos coming out.